The POSTHUMAN project. Now, before I get into my review, let me just give my initial opinion about what I thought this movie was actually about before I actually watched it, because I think the marketing for the film doesn't do a particularly good job of actually giving you an idea about what this film was truly like. So the title, first of all, the POSTHUMAN project, actually to me sounds at least like a horror film. And then we look at some of the posters and the kind of the DVD box art, and it kind of looks like it's kind of more along the lines of The Breakfast Club. Well, in actual fact, this film is pretty much a straight superhero movie with a kind of skewed towards a kind of younger audience, perhaps. Now, the thing that I kind of really compare this to the most is actually an old TV show from, I think, the early 90s called Misfits of Science, which in the UK was actually the kind of repackaged as a kind of a movie, basically, from edited episodes. Now, people of a certain age may remember that one, but it's kind of an old one now and very obscure. But it's basically, to put it in another way, is essentially a kind of almost like an X-Men style kind of story, really. So it focuses on five friends who are all at kind of high school, and basically through a series of events and kind of things that lead up to a particular kind of crisis, shall we say, they actually gain superhuman powers. And the first half of this film is really the kind of getting to know the characters and stuff and like that, and the second half is really they get the powers and basically have to defeat a bad guy. So I won't go into too much in regards to sort of spoilers, because there is a few kind of reveals, shall we say, as the film progresses. But let me just go through a few things. So negatives first of all, this film. So let's start off with the minuses. So this is very cliched in regards to the way the characters are portrayed. I mean, we've got a typically diverse kind of group of friends. We've got the kind of the nerdy one. We've got the kind of the athletic one. We've got the brainy one. All of that. So it's all there, basically. All these kind of tropes that you've seen. And there's so many things, not just with that happen throughout this movie, that is just cliche upon cliche. I mean, god damn it, we've even got someone revived with a kiss in this movie. Yeah, that's really in there. So this is really just kind of one kind of movie cliche that we've seen after another. So that's the first thing. The other thing here, now bear in mind the budget of this film is low, so you have to kind of keep it in mind. The effects on this one. Now I will say this, with a lot of these kind of lower budget independent films, they kind of find an excuse, especially superhero films, they basically find an excuse not to show you the powers. Their powers have been deactivated, or these superheroes who don't have powers, you do see the powers on screen. Okay, so there is the effect here, and for a kind of low budget film, the effects are not too bad, but they do use a lot of green screen here, and it is so obvious. I mean, really, really obvious, particularly towards the kind of the end of the movie. It's very, very distracting. However, the worst crime for me for this film has got to be the acting. The acting here is extremely bad. I mean, it's almost cringeworthy level acting for the most part. Yeah, I appreciate here the cast are very young, and obviously these are guys who probably haven't had a huge amount of professional experience. But when you are watching it as a film piece of entertainment, the acting is quite bad, particularly from certain cast members who I won't point out just in case they end up watching this, but they are there's some poor acting here on display. Now you couple that with the kind of the cliches and the kind of the cliche dialogue that's come out, makes for a cheesy film. Now if you are a younger viewer, I think here this is where you may not mind about this kind of stuff, or if you want to kind of, I mean, there's nothing here which is a kind of an explicit, there's no bad language or hyper violence or gore or anything like that, really. So I think this is probably suitable for certainly a younger audience. The problem for me, if you put this in front of kids, because these guys aren't dressed in colourful costumes, this is because they're all dressed into the sort of civvies. I just don't know if they'd buy into it as superheroes, because that's kind of what I think kids will be looking for in a kind of superhero film when they've been treated to things like Spider-Man and the Avengers and stuff like that. So that's the kind of the this is what I'm saying. I don't think this film has kind of focused enough about what the market is. On the plus side, despite the fact that it is very cliche, I actually did find this kind of fun. you know, the characters, although very cliched, are all kind of quite likeable. They do seem to have quite a good kind of sort of a chemistry together. And like I said, I appreciate the fact that we actually do see some powers, and they're a kind of a mixed bag. And there's obviously some scientific technobabble explaining, how the powers come to be and all that. But we get a good mix. You know, we've basically got, kind of a Wolverine healing factor. We've got a person who can kind of shoot fire. We've got someone who can fly. We've got someone who seems to be kind of, teleport and one of these incredibly strong and bulletproof. So there's an array of powers here. We've got the bad guy who, he's got sort of ends up having powers. And, well, the bad guy, though, going back to negative, so is this really, really chewing the scenery a bit too much here and kind of a bit cheesy, to be quite honest? To me, this film is almost like a pilot. This is why I say the comparison to Misfits of Science, because it does feel like almost like a pilot to a TV show. It has that kind of filter, and it is kind of open-ended, to be fair, so I wouldn't be surprised if obviously the intention here was to kind of go further with it. Whether it will, obviously, I don't know. It is kind of fun. It is an enjoyable film if you can kind of look past these kind of flaws, and there's obviously effort being put behind it, but I think for me personally, it needed to have a clear sense of direction and where it was going and what its kind of target audience was, because I think that's going to be the main thing here. Is it's a little unfocused, and the acting, very, very bad acting. So for me, I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.